coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio. This is Talking Politics, and I am the professor and New Jersey's premier journalist, Fernando Uribe. Hoping you all had a wonderful week. There is a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, it's approximately a little over a week since the 46th president of the United States took the oath of office. And without question, Joe Biden has been very busy, whether it's signing multiple executive orders, which is kind of interesting since, he and many members of his party accused the 45th president of being a dictator, but by all accounts, signing more than 30 executive orders within, let's say, the first 24 hours in office. I don't know about you, that sounds a little dictatorial to me, but that's a topic for another day. But one of the executive orders that really stood out for me, and one that should outrage all of you, especially parents with young children, specifically young girls, and pretty much what Joe Biden did to a lot of his female fan base that came out for him during this past election and voted for him in high numbers, apparently from suburban housewives to urban mothers. Well, guess what? Joe Biden is now paying you back by slapping you in the face. Now, let me give you a little bit of context here so you can understand why you should be outraged, because I know I'm pissed off about it. And the president's trans order has undone decades of feminist progress. Now, the president of the United States believes that you're not for equality unless you celebrate biological men dominating women and girls in sports. He's willing to throw away everything female athletes have worked for by allowing transgendered men to compete in women's sports. And let's be honest, again, this is not me being misogynist or sexist or whatever other name you want to, engage in when it comes to me. But folks, science is science, all right? Men have genetically stronger bodies than females. That's just the way it is, okay? You don't need a PhD in medicine or in biology. But I remember taking high school biology. And I remember some of the basic things that I learned from exceptional teachers I had at Memorial High School. But again, let me not digress. Last week, the President of the United States signed an executive order discriminating against women, plain and simple. Now, the directive is titled Preventing and Combating Discrimination on the Basis of Gender, Identity, or Sexual Orientation. And pretty much what this does, ladies and gentlemen, is it spells disaster for women's shelters, sports, and ultimately healthcare in the name of transgender equality. So, for example, institutions that receive Title IX funding must now allow biological males who identify as females to compete in women's sports. According to the executive order, quote, children should be able to learn without worrying about whether they will be denied to school sports. Unfortunately, the President of the United States and many members of his party, as well as, the usual social justice clowns, leftists, liberals, and woke fools, have all somehow avoided a very inconvenient topic. And that is that how the bone density, the muscle mass, and the lung capacity of female identifying biological males gives them an unfair advantage over biological females, thus allowing them to eventually claim titles, trophies, and eventual scholarships. Folks, and this is where, again, and my heart goes out to anyone with young girls, especially, obviously daughters, who play organized sports. Now, I don't have any kids that I know of, but at some point, I'm hoping to. And if I have kids, I prefer boys over girls, but the bottom line is if I do have daughters and they play sports, which I'll encourage them to do if that's the case, the last thing I need to think about is biological boys now masquerading as girls and taking their spots on rosters or anything else. Let me tell you something. For every soccer mom, for every mom and dad in general that takes their young daughter to track and field practice, to basketball practice, to softball practice, to whatever, okay? This is pretty much a slap in the face to all of you. Now, again, you don't need a PhD in biology or an MD in any sort of natural science to understand some basic things. There is the XX chromosome and the XY chromosome. I learned that, again, at Memorial High School in West New York. I had amazing biology teachers, everyone from Louis Marchesani, God rest his soul, to Joseph Guglielmo and many others. All right, and I learned basic biology, and that's something that, haven't you always noticed that many members of the left always bitch and moan about, science? And if you don't believe in science, then somehow you are either bigoted or you're ignorant or you're closed-minded, right? Don't we hear that all the time? I mean, I get a lot of grief on social media when I call out all the climate hysterics, right? That, we're going to be underwater soon, and that, we're going to be, the earth is warming. Well, folks, we've heard all this hysteria for decades now, and last time I looked, we're not underwater, and, not to say we don't have to take care of the planet, per se, but this climate hysteria that, has been force-fed down our throats for decades now has been a farce, let's be honest. But every time we don't believe in the science, we get denounced, especially conservatives like me. We get bashed on social media. We get, vitriol thrown at us because we don't believe in science. But isn't it funny how members of the left want to cherry pick when they want to believe in science or not? But now apparently science doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter specifically to parents with young daughters because at the end of the day, here, let me just give you an example. You know what? Let's say you have a daughter playing high school basketball or high school soccer or track and field or even softball. Let's say your daughter leads the county conference. For example, here in Hudson County, we have the Hudson County Scholastic Athletic Association. Now, I might be off a little bit with the acronym, but you get the point. If you have a daughter that for whatever reason wins, let's say, the county three-point percentage contest, or leads the league in scoring in basketball, or leads the league in goals in soccer, isn't that great? And I applaud that. Hopefully, that young lady puts herself in an incredible position to perhaps earn a college scholarship. What does it say when the following year, a biological boy, now masquerading as a girl, decides to win, the county MVP, or leads the league in scoring and shatters that young girl's records? What does it say? It's saying to parents everywhere, like, you know what? All that hard work that your daughter put into being the best soccer player possible, or the best basketball player possible, or the best runner in track and field, you know what that means now? It means nothing, because we have to cater to the LGBT community. And let me be very clear about something, because there isn't a greater ally of the LGBT community in Hudson County than myself, because I'll put my money where my mouth is, okay? I go to events sponsored by Garden State Equality. I've donated to Garden State Equality. I've donated to Hudson Pride, all right? I am an ally of those organizations, and I'm an ally because I have many friends who identify as LGBT. But one thing is, supporting the LGBT community and being tolerant and being encouraging, but I'm also not going to coddle anybody or cater to some ridiculous left-wing agenda. And that's what's happening here. And unfortunately, the President of the United States is caving to this very same demographic that, I get it, LGBT equality, LGBT groups came out for Joe Biden. Great, that's awesome. But now what he's doing is he's pretty much, slapping every mom and dad in the face who has a young daughter playing sports of any kind. Why? Because somehow we have to make sure that we don't offend the LGBT community, that we coddle them or cater to them. Folks, this is bad policy. And it doesn't make me a transphobe. It doesn't make me a bigot. It doesn't make me a homophobe. What it makes me is someone who's upset with bad policy. They're not bad people, but this is bad policy by the President of the United States. Now, notwithstanding the other ridiculous executive orders that the President signed, I can get to that in the coming weeks, which I'll be more than happy to dissect. But when it comes to this, and me being a sports fan, okay, for any of you that follow me on social media, you know I'm as big a sports fanatic as there is. I love my New York Yankees. I love my Dallas Cowboys. I love my Los Angeles Lakers. I love my New Jersey Devils. Hell, I even love Rutgers men basketball because I'm a diehard alumnus. I even root for the Rutgers women's basketball team, okay? So I love my sports. But what does it say where now we're taking away from the sanctity of sports, from the purity of sports? Folks, there aren't a lot of things that we can escape, to anymore, especially during this era of COVID. But sports is supposed to be that climate that, we can escape for a few hours and enjoy a game and root for the teams that we want to and root for the players that we want to. What does it say when even now sports is now being victimized by the woke culture and by all the social justice clowns that feel that, if you don't do this, then you're transphobic or you're not supporting the trans community. I can support the trans community all I want. You want to be trans? God bless you. Whatever. I don't want my tax dollars paying for any operations or any medications, whatever. That's on you. You want to identify as whoever you want? That's on you. I don't really care for my tax dollars to coddle you. However, folks, what's happening here is just wrong. It's bad policy. And for anyone who's a sports fan and for anyone that has a daughter, do me a favor. You should be writing to your legislators, all right? You should be writing to Governor Murphy. You should be writing to your representatives in Congress, whether it's here in Hudson County, such as U.S. Representative Albio Sires, or our senators, Cory Booker and Robert Menendez, and tell the president this is wrong, okay? What are you saying to women, specifically college athletes, okay? Young girls who, let's be honest, they have it difficult enough as it is. Even before COVID, athletic scholarships for women were very scarce as it was. Not because colleges and universities aren't adhering to Title IX funding, it's just difficult. What are you saying now to these young women that, if they don't cater to this and if they speak up, they'll be labeled as, again, bigots and transphobes and whatever? It's wrong. Opposing this doesn't make me a transphobe. Opposing this doesn't make me a homophobe. Opposing this doesn't make me a bigot. It makes me a concerned citizen that wants somehow the purity of sports to remain. Let the boys play with the boys and let the girls play with the girls. Let's not mix and match now because we have to cater to some left-wing agenda. I don't know about you folks, I'm tired of it. And this is what makes, once again, the left, many liberals, many of the social justice clowns and woke fools, absolutely insufferable. You know what? Add one more thing to the list of why they're just a ridiculous amount of people to tolerate. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. In the latest edition of the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, was my monthly, regularly scheduled guest, the distinguished chairwoman of the Hudson County Democratic Organization and now a candidate for city council in Jersey City, Amy DeGise. We talked for over an hour on a variety of different topics. But first and foremost, here are some highlights for your consideration. We start off by discussing why she decided to join Mayor Phillips' ticket after all, when it was being rumored that she might stay out of this race and just concentrate on being the chair of the HCDO. Let's see what she had to say.
You did officially announce, the addition of you certainly makes the mayor's ticket very formidable, as not only because of, you being the chair of the HCDO, but also because of your presence in the community. You're an educator. You've been very visible, and, you're a dedicated Democrat. And we know that, city elections are sort of nonpartisan per se. But a lot of people were shocked, Amy, about you joining Mayor Phillips' ticket. I know one thing is to sort of hash out any conflict between your father and the mayor, which existed 3 years ago because of what happened, let's be honest. But since then, your father and the mayor have moved things out clearly. I know many people behind the scenes were telling me, you know what? Amy is diplomatic. Amy is being the good daughter, but I know she's not happy. I could tell sometimes you were not when you came on this program, but that seems to be, in the past. You're on the mayor's ticket, and I think the big question people have is why?
It feels like it happened really fast. The last time we had spoken, it was really rumor. And, right around the holidays, doing my check-ins with the officials and talking about some New Year goals. And it just came like, hey, do you have time to grab a bite? And we did. And we just started talking. And, he said, what would you think? And I didn't know what my initial reaction was. It was, I'd heard the rumors, but like I said, I'd never been asked. And I wanted some time to digest it, and I don't know if that took him off guard, that it wasn't like an automatic response, but I said, let me kind of sit in this for a little bit and let me, talk to people that I trust and, is this, the right thing? And I know what was going on right before the holidays were some of the protests happening at the county jail, at my dad's house, a lot of just kind of intense pressure and pushback from the community that I really just felt was misguided in some ways. And, after talking to some people and thinking it over, I'm going, I have an opportunity to become a legislator for my home, for the city that I'm never going to leave. And I think that I offer the things that you said, I bring a lot to the table, but I think what I bring to the table that I value the most is what I feel, is going on in Jersey City, what was done right, what was not done right, and where we're going to go in the future, and why wait any more, why let any more time pass, get involved, and to be a part of the legislation here and the policy building here. And really kind of show the community that diplomacy creates more meaningful change in your community than publicly shaming or cancel culture or, just, dying on every hill, and that goes for, not just the far left, super progressive groups, but, people who are maybe leaning a little bit right or just don't agree with the Democratic Party. Just show that, you could voice different opinions because I think both the mayor and I have been vocal that, we had some difficulties in our relationship, but at the end of the day, we want to see the best for the city. And I think he'll understand, or I think he does understand that if we do have disagreements, we'll handle them like adults and we'll create some, form of diplomacy and compromise that we can work together and show other people kind of how to work together with people that you don't agree with. You don't have to publicly bash people. You don't have to attack people. You could agree on some things. You could disagree on some things. Be your own person and have a backbone. And I I think where he has taken the city, his leadership, especially under COVID, has been, excellent. So I think that I can tap into some things that haven't been really touched or improved upon or haven't gone far enough from my perspective, being a lifelong resident here, being an educator here, working in different, out-of-school youth programs here, and just kind of thought, why would I wait? And let's say he leaves Jersey City, or let's say he gets an opportunity out of here, it would be an all-out civil war, and then I would be fighting for, a spot or, teams would be aligning and say, well, before that happens, let me kind of assert myself as, a leader here and try and bring different groups together. So, and that when that thought hit me, I called him up. It was right before New Year's, and, I said, I think I could do this. I think we could do this. This is good. And since then, been voicing some of platforms that I'd like to take and, ideas that I have. And he's been really just, great with that and open ears. And I think he does really respect the Jersey City born and bred position. So, and I know that, and a lot of people had asked, I said, wow, like, it's so weird. I would never think it, or I thought you'd run against him. And, just sometimes when doors open, you have a gut instinct whether or not you should go through it or not. And I think that it's definitely a good move for me and good for me to kind of vocalize, what I work on now is more political stuff, and getting involved in the government stuff, which is going to be pretty cool, and it's a legacy that, not only my father was in, but my Aunt Lois, she was the first Democrat elected as at-large council in Jersey City. First female Democrat. And it just makes me insanely proud of how hard she had to fight to get into that position. And it's created this legacy within my family.
Without a doubt, her decision to join Mayor Fulop's ticket has sent a little bit of a ripple effect throughout the county. As we all know, U.S. Representative Sears was the latest high-ranking official to endorse Stephen Fulop, but we know that on the other side, the senior U.S. Senator, Robert Menendez, was not happy about not only Representative Sears' endorsement, but it seems that even the chair of the HCDO joining Mayor Fulop's ticket has not sat well with the senior United States Senator. Ultimately, it's something to keep an eye out for in the weeks and months ahead as this election season progresses. Next, we talked about Amy's desire to sort of bridge the gap that still exists between Old Jersey City and New Jersey City. We're seeing development all over the city, and first and foremost, she's concerned about what this means for Hudson County's largest city, and quite frankly, should she win a seat on the city council as an at-large council person, how she's going to dedicate her time to addressing all the areas, once again, in Hudson County's largest city. Let's see what she had to say about this.
You stand shoulder to shoulder with Mayor Fulop. What are you going to say to the naysayers that are still skeptical and say, you know what, Mayor Fulop has kind of started the process of pricing people out because of policy along with the city council? What can you tell residents that are scared about themselves being priced out?
Yeah, and that fear is real, and I, lived through it, and I can completely relate to it. Yeah, I feel Old Jersey City. I was raised by Old Jersey City. I was, raised here when, my parents' friends were leaving because they didn't want to raise their family here, and I was raised here when there were certain routes to walk home from school because I couldn't go past the day bars that were open, or there was, blood on the sidewalk and, just ugly neighborhoods. But also raised around like the old culture here, people greeting you, telling you what parish they were from, not just their neighborhood, but like, hey, I'm Amy, I am from St. Paul Cross Parish, because that let you know what neighborhood they were from, what cultures that they were around. But, being younger, I do enjoy some of the New Jersey City, and the businesses that have been brought in and, the more diversity that has come in and, some of the technology and things that we've been able to do here. So I feel like both groups, and I agree, Old Jersey City does not feel welcomed here by New Jersey City, and New Jersey City sometimes doesn't seem to care about the culture of Old Jersey City, and they, it becomes mocked, disrespected, and, sometimes, people are here for 10 minutes and they want to point out every problem. And they're saying, well, I'm not going to raise my family here. I'm just going to be here in Place City for a little bit. And they would never dare to venture south of Communipaw. So I do feel connected to both groups, but I also, I feel more connected to the old Jersey City. And I think the parts of New Jersey City that I enjoy, like I said, I think could come to different sections that it hasn't come to just yet, but with delicacy.
As always, it's a very illuminating episode with the chair of the Hudson County Democratic Organization. And you can listen to the episode in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talk on the Hudson. You can download the episode and listen to it anywhere at any time from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. And these are the exclusives I'll continue to bring you throughout 2021 on Blog Talk Radio. And now to some local stories for your consideration. And let's start off in the Mile Square city of Hoboken, where, and once again, a shout out to John Hines with the Hudson County View, as always, for his excellent reporting on this story. And it seems that Councilman Phil Cohen has filed an ELEC complaint against Councilwoman Fisher for a late council filing. Now, here's some details to sort of unravel what exactly is at the heart of the matter. Now, Hoboken 5th Ward Councilman Phil Cohen has filed a complaint with the New Jersey Election Enforcement Commission against 2nd Ward Councilwoman Tiffany Fisher for a late council filing related to her 2019 re-election bid. Now, the complaint contends that Fisher never filed a 20-day post-election report after being reelected to another 4-year term on November 5th, 2019. Her most recent filing is dated October 29, 2019, according to New Jersey's ELEC online database. In a statement, Phil Cohen indicates that he brought this up during a public session at the beginning of the year, and it still has not been remedied. According to Councilman Cohen, quote, during the Hoboken City Council meeting of January 6, 2021, I specifically told Councilwoman Fisher that our most recent ELEC disclosure for Hoboken's November 5, 2019 City Council election was filed on October 29, 2019, he explained. At that council meeting, Councilwoman Fisher publicly acknowledged she had a legal obligation to make post-ELEC disclosures. Cohen also called it hypocritical that Fisher introduced an ordinance on January 20th to tighten the city's pay-to-play laws without addressing her own shortcomings. In response, Councilwoman Fisher said she is in the process of correcting the matter and remains optimistic that the ordinance itself she introduced with 6th Ward Councilwoman Jen Giattino, the Board Vice President, will pass next week. Quote, as Councilman Cohen said, I thanked him for pointing this out to me at our council meeting in January in the spirit of good governance. Well, folks, let me just say this because, listen, I've never liked Phil Cohen. I've always found him to be sort of like a little bit of a snake politically. And I can say that because, I've gotten to know Phil Cohen a little bit. And if you know him as well, you'll definitely agree with me. And this is a guy who, let's be honest, if it wasn't for Peter Cunningham not running for his seat once again, Phil Cohen would have never sniffed, City Hall, much less never even sniffed city council seat. But again, he decided to run. He's one of those guys that keeps running and running and running, and at some point, he'll eventually get elected. And that was the lucky part for Phil Cohen. And I get it that he's a lackey for, Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala, and he's sort of at a disadvantage because of, the council majority seems to be not necessarily anti-Bala, but not necessarily willing to sort of cater to the Hoboken mayor's agenda. And I understand that Phil Cohen is sort of doing a sort of a partisan attack here. He and obviously Councilwoman Fisher don't get along. They're obviously, of different registered parties. And that doesn't really mean anything in Hoboken politics because, city council elections are indeed nonpartisan at a municipal level. But this is just another example of Phil Cohen and bitching and moaning, very much like, Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala about any little thing. Folks, listen, there are people still without unemployment. There are still people struggling to pay their rent in Hoboken as rents are skyrocketing, as overdevelopment continues to sort of overrun the city. And this is what Phil Cohen is focused on. And no offense, Phil, listen, there are more important things to be fixated on than an ELEC disclosure. It might have been an honest mistake. It might have been an oversight. But in the grand scheme of things, Phil, you need to be focusing on other things, especially in your ward, where there are still people that maybe are, again, struggling to pay rent, that are struggling to maybe pay a mortgage. They're even struggling to put food on the table. But this is what you decide to fixate on. Phil, come on, man, get your priorities together. I get it. You're a lackey for the mayor. You want to sort of fight his battles for him on the city council. But come on, man, you're a grown-ass guy. Focus on what's important in the Mile Square City. Not about ELEC stuff, but focus about what's going on during COVID. And I think you'll be doing a better service to your constituents instead of being a grown man sort of, crying like a little girl. Lastly, we'll go to Jersey City where, once again, a shout out to Ron Zetlinger with the Jersey Journal for his reporting on this story. Now, a former Jersey Department of Recreation payroll clerk recently pled guilty Wednesday to stealing $80,000 by inflating work hours for relatives and friends, according to State Attorney General Gabriel Gurwal's office. Now, under the plea deal, Angela Rivera must pay full restitution to the city and will be permanently banned from public employment. Now, the state plans to recommend Rivera be sentenced to 3 years in state prison when she is sentenced on April the 9th. Now, 4 people who were involved in the scheme included Rivera's daughter, Ashley Cuevas of Jersey City, Alfred Coriano, Gabriel Villanueva, and Carlos Huertas, were admitted into the pretrial intervention program. Now, each was accused of depositing paychecks into accounts they controlled that they knew reflected work hours that had been fraudulently inflated by Rivera. Now, if they successfully complete the PTI program, the charges against them will be dismissed. Now, Rivera admitted that between December 31st, 2016 through February 23rd of 2018, she stole over $80,000 by inflating payroll hours for certain part-time and seasonal employees who are her relatives or personal associates. Rivera also forged employee signatures on some of the paychecks so she could deposit the money into her own personal account. Others were deposited into accounts controlled by employees named on the checks. Folks, this is the stuff that really kind of makes you wonder about how shady city government can be, and ultimately how sometimes people like this woman, bring such a bad name to civil servants. Listen, I don't want to be punitive. She didn't commit murder. But if it's a 3-year jail sentence she's facing, I don't think that's enough. And I think that Attorney General Gabriel Gurwal's office should be as harsh as possible to send a message that this type of behavior should not be tolerated. Giving her a slap on the wrist, which is 3 years in jail, that's nothing. It should be longer. And again, she didn't commit a capital crime, but we should be sending a message to those that work in city government that, you trust us with your money, and this is how we pay you back. Listen, again, I don't know Angela Rivera. I don't care to. She doesn't seem like a very good human being. Maybe some jail time and some long jail time might do her well. And you know what? It might send a better message to send her to jail for a lot longer to make sure that behavior like this isn't tolerated and it doesn't repeat itself, whether it be in Jersey City or any other municipality in Hudson County. I'll keep you posted about what goes on with this story in the weeks and months ahead, folks. But once again, I'm hoping that Attorney General Gabriel Gurwal and the State Attorney General's office, right, and the Department of Law and Public Safety can ultimately sentence her much longer because, she deserves it. And quite frankly, so does the taxpayers of Jersey City, who she fraudulently, did a disservice to for all those years. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group, check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and www.livestream.com/HMGTV. Make sure you support Hudson County's leader in independent media by liking them on Facebook and following them on Instagram and Twitter. And also remember, live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m., you can check out the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talk on the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talk on the Hudson. And never forget, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always talking politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.